The city lights blurred into meaningless streaks as I sat on the cracked concrete steps outside what was supposed to be our first home together. The rented tuxedo itched against my skin, the bow tie hanging loose around my neck, useless now. My hands were numb, but not from the cold. It was a phone that kept buzzing against my thigh, the video still playing, over and over, whether I wanted it or not. Her laughter, his hands on her hips, her lips on his mouth, in the middle of a filthy nightclub, in front of dozens of strangers. And now, thanks to someone's shaky recording, in front of half the goddamn internet. Man, is that the bride? Someone snickered from a passing car, the headlights cutting across me like a spotlight. I didn't respond. Couldn't. The phone buzzed again. Messages piling up. Friends, family, co-workers. Some texts were filled with horror, some with pity, others with that thinly veiled glee people get when someone else's life blows up. Bro, you seeing this? Isn't that your fiancé? Call me, man. Holy shit. I stared at the screen one more time, at the woman I had been ready to marry in less than 24 hours. The woman who, right now, was still probably too drunk to realize that the life she burned down wasn't just hers. I should have been angry. Should have been breaking something. Should have been screaming into the night like some tragic, betrayed idiot. Instead, I felt hollow. Empty in a way I didn't know a man could feel and still keep breathing. Somewhere deep inside me, something shifted. Not rage, not grief. Something colder, sharper, the kind of thing you don't come back from. A voice, calm and certain, rose in the ruins of my chest. You will not be their victim. I stood up, stuffing the phone into my pocket like it was nothing but dead weight. Tomorrow was supposed to be my wedding day. Now, tomorrow would be something else entirely. Tomorrow would be the beginning of my resurrection. And God help anyone who thought they could laugh at me and walk away clean. I met her on a Thursday. It was one of those ordinary nights you don't expect to matter. A quick drink after work, a few jokes with the guys, an overcrowded bar humming with music too loud for real conversation. And then she walked in, dark hair tumbling over her shoulders, deep brown eyes that held storms and promises in equal measure, a leather jacket thrown over a simple black dress, no jewelry except for a thin silver ring on her thumb. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. That was what made it impossible to look away. She caught me staring, smirked, held my gaze for just a second longer than polite society allowed. It should have ended there. A glance, a missed opportunity, another regret tucked away for lonely nights. But fate, or maybe something crueler, had other plans. 15 minutes later, we were standing side by side at the bar, both annoyed at how long the bartender was taking. She laughed when I made some sarcastic comment about dying of thirst. I laughed when she ordered whiskey neat, no hesitation. You're not from around here, are you? I asked, the words falling out before I could think better of it. Depends, she said, tilting her head. Around here compared to where? Her voice was low, a little rough around the edges, like she'd smoked a few cigarettes in her lifetime and never once apologized for it. My name's Tyler. I said, offer my hand. She took it, her grip firm. Natalie. Just like that, the rest of the night blurred away. The noise, the crowd, the cheap beer smell clinging to the walls. None of it mattered. All I remember is her laughing at my terrible jokes, the way her eyes softened when she told me about her love for old movies, the way she twirled the straw in her glass when she was nervous. We closed the bar down together. I walked her to her car, hands stuffed deep into my jacket pockets, trying not to ruin the moment by saying something stupid. Same time next week? I asked, heart pounding like a teenager's. She smiled, a little sad, a little fierce. I travel a lot for work. Might not be around. I shrugged, playing it cool even as disappointment gnawed at my ribs. Then I'll take what I can get. She hesitated, then leaned in and kissed my cheek, soft, quick, devastating. Good answer, she said, slipping into her car. The taillights disappeared into the night, but the feeling stayed. That strange, electric certainty that I'd just met someone important. Someone dangerous to the man I thought I was. Over the next few weeks, Natalie became my anchor in my storm. Some days she was all fire and challenge, daring me to keep up. Other days she was soft and quiet, curling against my side on the couch, her hair smelling like rain and vanilla. Her job kept her moving. She'd disappear for days at a time, business trips, she said, conferences, meetings in cities I could barely point to on a map. I didn't question it. Not then. Not when she always came back with stories and souvenirs, with kisses that tasted like apology. She made me believe that real love wasn't just for other people, that after all the bullshit, the bad dates, the broken hearts, maybe I had finally found a person meant for me. We joked about getting a place together, talked about taking a trip somewhere warm, even made stupid plans for a dog we'd name Whiskey after our first drink together. I didn't notice the little cracks forming beneath the surface. The night she'd pull away when I kissed her too deeply. The time she flinched when her phone buzzed and she didn't want me to see the screen. The way her laughter sometimes sounded forced, like a beautiful song just slightly out of tune. I didn't see it. I didn't want to, because when you're finally happy, when you finally think you've beaten the odds, you'll do anything to protect the illusion. Even if it means ignoring the way your gut twists at 2 a.m. when she says she has to leave town again, this time for a really important project. Even if it means swallowing down that sour taste in your mouth when she promises it's nothing, just work, always just work. I loved her. God help me, I love her so much it made me blind. And if there's one thing life always punishes without mercy, it's a man who refuses to see the truth standing right in front of him. The first time I felt it, the crack in the armor, I told myself it was nothing, just a bad day, too much coffee, too little sleep. Natalie had been gone for 5 days on business. Seattle, this time, some conference about marketing strategies and brand optimization. She sent me a picture from the hotel lobby, all sleek lines and corporate soullessness. I stared at that photo longer than I should have, noticing details I didn't want to notice. The drink in her hand wasn't her usual whiskey. It was something pink with a tiny umbrella. The lipstick was darker than the shade she normally wore. The smile didn't quite reach her eyes. But I texted back something dumb and safe. Looks fancy. Miss you. The reply came 5 minutes later. Miss you too, babe. Can't wait to be home. I wanted to believe it. God, I needed to believe it. But belief only gets you so far. The next few days dragged by in a haze of overthinking and half-finished work. Every little thing gnawed at me. The missed calls. The short, distracted conversations. The way her voice seemed to beat too quick to say, I love you, like she was reminding herself. When she finally came home, it was like nothing had happened. She burst through the door smelling like airport coffee and hotel soap, kissed me breathless, and dropped a snow globe of the Seattle skyline into my hand, like some kind of peace offering. Souvenir, she said, grinning, shedding her jacket and kicking off her boots like she couldn't wait to be back. I held the stupid little snow globe in my hand and told myself everything was fine, because what else could I do? We fell back into our rhythm, cooking dinner side by side, watching trash TV on the couch, her head on my shoulder, her fingers tracing lazy circles on my chest. Normal, comfortable, home. But late at night, when she was asleep and the world was quiet, the questions crept in. Why did she suddenly start putting passwords on her phone? Why did she always have an excuse to leave when certain numbers popped up on the caller ID? Why were there receipts in her purse for places she'd never mentioned visiting? The mind is a funny thing. It'll build entire fortresses of denial to protect the heart. It'll stack excuses like sandbags against a rising flood. She's tired. She's stressed. She's just busy. You're overthinking it. Maybe I was. Maybe I wasn't. The next trip was to Chicago. Another conference. This time, she barely texted at all. I found myself refreshing her Instagram page like some pathetic addict looking for a fix, searching for any sign, any hint that she was just living a normal life out there without me. She posted a single story, a blurry shot of the skyline at night. No tags, no location, no caption. It felt like a go signal, a lighthouse flickering on the edge of a storm. The loneliness crept in hard that week. I stayed late at work, even when I didn't have to. Ate shitty takeout alone in the kitchen. Fell asleep with the TV blaring, because silence felt too heavy. When she finally came back, I noticed new clothes in her suitcase. Brand she never usually bought. Perfume I didn't recognize clinging to her jacket. But she curled into me like nothing was wrong. Whispered, "I missed you," into my skin like a prayer. And I let it go, because love is a stubborn, foolish thing. Because the idea of losing her scared me more than the thought of being lied to. Because sometimes, even when the truth is banging on your door, you pretend not to hear it. You pour another drink. You kiss her goodnight. You hold on tighter to a dream that's already slipping through your fingers. But the dream was rotting from the inside out. And deep down, I knew it. I just didn't know yet how ugly the truth was about to get these days. With a random click. I wasn't looking for anything. Not really. Just another sleepless night. Too wired to read. Too restless to watch TV. Too damn lonely to close my eyes without seeing her face behind my eyelids. I was scrolling to my phone like a zombie, half dead inside, flipping through memes and mindless videos, desperate to numb the gnawing feeling in my gut. That's when it happened. An ad popped up, some cheap-looking banner, flashing promises of exclusive content, leaked videos, hidden lives revealed. I almost scrolled past it. Almost. But something in me, some reckless, self-destructive part that had been festering since the doubts began, clicked. It took me to a site I'd never seen before. A low-end, grainy-looking mess of thumbnails and flashing neon text. At first, I thought it was just the usual garbage. Until I saw her, there, dead center of the screen, smiling in a way I'd never seen before. Wearing less than I ever thought she would for anyone but me. My heart stopped. Literally. I felt the blood freeze in my veins. I zoomed in, thinking it had to be a mistake. A look-alike. A cruel coincidence. But there was no mistaking a tattoo just below her hip bone. The tiny black star I used to kiss in the mornings when she stretched and yawned in our bed. It was her. It was Natalie. On a site for amateur adult videos. Starring in her own private collection. Except it wasn't private anymore. It was very, very public. The world tilted under me. I sat there, frozen, staring at the screen, unable to move, unable to think, barely able to breathe. The video title hit me like a fist in the gut. Business trip confessions. Naughty secretary gets wild after hours. I clicked before I could stop myself. The video started with laughter. Her laughter, the same soft giggle she used to give me when I whispered something stupid in her ear. But it wasn't my arms around her. It wasn't my hands pulling her closer. The man was older, heavier. Someone I'd never seen before. And Natalie, she wasn't drunk. She wasn't coerced. She was laughing, teasing, performing like she'd done 100 times. Like it wasn't her first rodeo. I slammed the laptop shut. So hard the screen cracked. My chest heaved with ragged, broken breaths. I stumbled to the sink. Splashed cold water on my face, stared at my own reflection, wild eyes, shaking hands, a man I barely recognized. What the hell was happening? 1,000 questions screamed through my skull. How long had this been going on? Was this what her business trips really were? How many men? How many videos? And most hauntingly, who was she really? The woman who shared my bed. The woman who smiled at me across dinner tables. The woman who said, "I love you," with my name on her tongue. Was she real? Or was she just another role she played for the camera? I wanted to be angry. God. I wanted to rage, to scream, to smash everything breakable in sight. But all I felt was a hollow, suffocating emptiness. Like I'd fallen to the floor of my own life, and there was nothing beneath me but black. The betrayal was bigger than cheating. Bigger than lies. It was existence-shattering. I wiped my face with shaking hand and sat back down at the cracked laptop, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I needed answers. Not the kind she would volunteer over coffee and eggs in the morning. Not the kind you could pull out with gentle questions. The brutal, ugly truth. If I was going to survive this, I needed to know everything. No more denial. No more blind faith. The love of my life was a stranger, and I was about to find out just how deep the rabbit hole went. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. There's a kind of exhaustion that doesn't touch your body. It seeps into your soul, poisoning every thought, every heartbeat. I sat at the kitchen table for hours, the cracked laptop screen still glowing dimly, casting long shadows across the cold tile floor. I needed more. One video wasn't enough. It couldn't be. Some desperate part of me clung to the hope that it was a mistake, a one-time disaster, something she'd been pressured into, maybe even something she regretted. I needed to know, so I started digging. At first, it was clumsy, Googling the site's name, trying random search terms. Then I got methodical. I created burner emails, joined private forums, found the darker corners of the internet, where anonymity was currency and shame was entertainment. It didn't take long before I found more. Her face, her laugh, that same goddamn star tattoo, always visible, like a cruel signature. Different men, different cities, different versions of Natalie that I had never been allowed to see. Sometimes she played the shy secretary, sometimes the bored housewife, sometimes the eager first-timer giving in to temptation. It was a gallery of betrayal, each video more casual, each performance more confident, each smile more practiced. She wasn't some victim. She was a professional, a performer, a liar with a prettier face than most. My stomach turned as I watched clip after clip in grim, self-inflicted penance. This was her real life, her real self, and I had been nothing but a costume change between scenes. Somewhere around 4 a.m., I stopped watching, not because I'd had enough, because I couldn't feel anything anymore. My body was cold. My mind was numb. I wasn't even angry. Not really. Anger was a fire. This was something worse. A glacier carving through the foundation of everything I thought I knew. The woman I loved. The woman I trusted. The woman I would have bled for. She didn't exist. At least, not outside the scene she sold to strangers online. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling, wondering what the hell I was supposed to do now. Confront her? Demand explanations she'd only deny? What was the point? Whatever fantasy we had built between us had already crumbled into dust. And once you've seen the truth, really seen it, you can't unsee it. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I couldn't imagine sitting through meetings, pretending to care about project deadlines while my world rotted from the inside out. Instead, I started documenting. I screen captured the videos, saved copies to encrypted drives, took notes on usernames, dates, geotags, anything that might matter later. Not because I wanted revenge. Not yet. Because some part of me, the rational part, the one she hadn't managed to kill, knew I'd need proof. When everything finally exploded, I'd need to be ready. She came home late that night, breezing through the door like nothing was wrong. Hair tousled, eyes bright, perfume sweet and cloying. "Sorry I'm late," she said, tossing her bag onto the couch. You wouldn't believe how crazy work was. I stared at her, at the way she smiled, the way she slipped out of her heels and rubbed her sore feet, the way she leaned down to kiss my cheek like she hadn't been on her knees for another man just days ago. The lie was so complete, it was almost beautiful. Almost. "You okay?" she asked, tilting her head, that familiar concerned wrinkle forming between her brows. "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. "Just tired." She bought it without a flicker of doubt, and that was when I knew. The game was still on, but the rules had changed. She thought she was the one living a double life. She had no idea she was being watched now, that every move she made was being recorded, cataloged, dissected. She thought she was the actress in this story, but I was the director now, and I already knew how this movie would end. Not with a scream, not with a whimper, but with silence. The kind of silence that follows a perfect, inevitable fall. And when she hit bottom, when she finally looked around and realized there was no one left to lie to, I would be standing there, holding the mirror. The thing about betrayal is, once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like noticing a crack in the foundation of your house. Suddenly, every creak, every groan, every shift of the floorboards feels like a warning. I started seeing everything differently after that night. The way Natalie clutched her phone a little tighter when she thought I wasn't looking. the way she smiled too brightly when explaining her sudden extra meetings, the way her stories grew thinner and thinner, patched together with half-truths and borrowed details. She was careful, polished, professional, but not perfect. Nobody ever is. And I had time now. Time to watch. Time to plan. Because the truth was, I didn't want a messy, screaming breakup. I didn't want to be the angry boyfriend, throwing accusations into the void while she gaslighted me into oblivion. No, I wanted precision. I wanted control. I wanted the kind of exit that would leave her standing in the ashes, wondering when the fire had even started. The first step was simple: gather everything. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a ghost in my own home, a quiet shadow at the edges of her increasingly frantic life. I cloned her phone. It wasn't even hard. One late night, when she stumbled home exhausted from a conference, she dropped her purse on the couch and went straight to the shower. 5 minutes. That's all it took. A small device, a copied SIM card, a hidden app she would never find. Now, every call she made, every message she sent, every secret folder she created. I saw it all. At first, it made me sick. Reading the threads between her and her agent, seeing the way she coordinated shoots under fake names, the way she laughed about the double life she was pulling off, the way she referred to me, once casually, as the oblivious fallback. But after the sickness came clarity. This wasn't about love. This wasn't even about lust. It was about power, control, attention. She wasn't cheating because she was unhappy. She was cheating because she could, because she thought I was too blind, too trusting, too ordinary to ever catch her. She thought she was smarter, better, untouchable, and that was going to be her downfall. The second step was harder. I needed to detach. Emotionally, physically, I stopped reaching for her at night, stopped asking questions, stopped giving her any pieces of myself she could twist into weapons later. I became polite, distant, neutral, the way you treat a guest who overstays their welcome. It didn't take long for her to notice. "You're different lately," she said one night, sitting across from me at the dinner table. The roast chicken between us was dry, tasteless. The wine she'd picked out, once our little tradition, tasted like ash in my mouth. "Just tired," I said with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Her lips twisted in a small, uncertain frown. Good. Let her feel it. Let the rot creep into the cracks. She never thought I'd notice. Meanwhile, I was preparing the final steps. I set up a new bank account under a name she didn't know. Transferred money slowly, small enough amounts that wouldn't raise questions. I found a new apartment across town. Cheap, quiet, anonymous. Paid cash for the deposit. Started moving things one bag at a time during my lunch breaks at work. All the essentials, all the irreplaceables, all the parts of my life I wasn't willing to let her taint any longer. The third step was delicate. I needed witnesses, proof. So I reached out to a private investigator, a woman, ironically enough, Carla. She didn't ask many questions after I told her what I knew. She just nodded once, took her fee, and disappeared into the background of Natalie's life like a ghost. Within a week, I had photos. Clear, brutal photos. Natalie in cheap hotel rooms. Natalie in makeup chairs. Natalie on set, wearing lingerie that she never once wore for me. Every image, another nail in the coffin. I compiled it all into a folder labeled simply, Exit. It sat there on my encrypted drive, heavy as a loaded gun, waiting. All that remained was timing. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want excuses. I wanted a clean kill. No mess. No screaming. No second chances. Just an ending. The way a surgeon cuts away dead tissue. Necessary, ruthless, and final. One evening, she came home early. Surprised me. She looked radiant. Flushed cheeks. Glowing skin. Eyes shining from some triumph I would never know. "Guess what?" she said, dropping her bag and twirling once in the living room like a child showing off a new dress. I watched her spin, watched the lies dance around her like invisible ribbons. "What?" I asked, my voice calm. "I got promoted," she said, laughing breathlessly. Evan thinks I'm management material. The irony was so sharp, I almost choked on it. I smiled, slow and easy, the way a wolf might smile at a lamb wandering too close. That's amazing, I said, and for the first time in months, I realized I wasn't lying. It was amazing, because it meant she would never see it coming. Her head was too high in the clouds. Her mirrors too polished by her own self-delusion. She thought she had won. She thought she had everything. She thought she could keep climbing higher and higher, forever untouched. But the ground under her feet was already crumbling, and I was the one holding the match. I waited until a Friday night. She always came home later on Fridays, usually drinks with the team or networking, she claimed, with that smile just shy of innocence. Perfect. I needed time. And tonight, I had all the time I needed. The apartment was silent, except for the low hum of the air conditioner, the clock ticking steadily on the wall, a metronome counting down the last hours of our shared life. I worked methodically. No anger. No hesitation. First, I packed the last few things I hadn't already moved to my new place. My grandfather's watch, my father's leather-bound journal, the few photos of my childhood that hadn't yet been digitized and forgotten. I left the big things behind. The furniture, the kitchenware, the TV we picked out together. Let her keep the trappings of the life she had poisoned. I wasn't interested in salvage, only in escape. On the dining table, I laid out a manila folder. Inside, everything. Printouts of the texts she thought were deleted. Photos from the PI's lens, cold, brutal truth captured frame by frame. A short, typed letter in my cleanest, most attached handwriting. No fights. No discussions. No second chances. You made your choices. I'm just honoring them. Beside the folder, I placed my key to the apartment and the spare one she kept hidden in the planter by the door. A small, symbolic gesture. I'm not coming back. I don't even need the option. And then came the final touch. I opened her laptop, the one she guarded so jealously, and uploaded a single file onto her desktop. Exit. When she opened it, if she dared, it would show a video slideshow, every photo, every text, every secret she'd tried to bury. No commentary. No threats. Just evidence. Just truth. Let her draw her own conclusions. I left the laptop open on the kitchen counter, humming softly as it ran. The screensaver still a photo of us smiling under the cherry blossoms last spring. Another beautiful lie. The clock ticked louder in the silence. 9:17 p.m. She would be back soon. I gathered my duffel bag, checked the living room one last time. The couch where we curled up together on lazy Sundays. The kitchen where she once sang off-key while baking cookies. The hallway where we kissed like teenagers, laughing, drunk on cheap wine and hope. It was amazing how dead a place could feel when the soul of it had already rotted. I killed the lights on my way out. Every room plunged into darkness behind me. A small mercy. Let her fumble through the dark when she came home. Let her wonder. Let her fear. The elevator ride down was silent, empty. I stared at my reflection in the mirrored walls, at the man I barely recognized. Thinner, sharper, colder, but alive. More alive than I'd been in months. Maybe years. I reached the parking garage, my car tucked neatly in a corner spot. The duffel slid into back seat. The engine hummed to life with a low, steady growl. I didn't look back as I drove away. Didn't glance once in the rear-view mirror, because there was nothing worth seeing back there. Only ruins, only smoke, only the slow crumbling of a life I'd already left behind. At a red light 2 blocks away, my phone buzzed. Natalie. I let it ring, and ring, and ring, then silenced it without answering. Another buzz. A text. Where are you? I thought we were going to watch a movie tonight, Red Heart. The irony made me laugh aloud in the darkness of my car. There she was, playing the devoted girlfriend even as the guillotine hovered inches above her pretty little neck. No, sweetheart. No more movies. No more games. You had your starring role. You just didn't realize the genre was tragedy. And tonight was opening night. I tossed the phone into the passenger seat and turned onto the highway. The city lights blurred in my peripheral vision, a smear of gold and blue against the ink-black sky. I drove the windows down, the cool night air washing over me, carrying away the last lingering traces of her perfume, her lies, her ghost. Freedom smelled like exhaust and salt and cold steel. Freedom tasted like adrenaline and clean, bitter satisfaction. Freedom sounded like the silence after a door slammed shut for the last time. I drove until the city fell away behind me, until high-rises gave way to empty fields, and the road stretched out like a lifeline before me. I didn't know exactly where I was going yet, only that I was going somewhere she could never follow. And that was enough. For now, I imagined the moment clearly, almost too clearly. She'd push open the door with her usual careless sway, purse slung over one shoulder, keys jingling in her hand, probably humming some mindless pop song, still buzzing from overpriced cocktails and flattery from strangers who didn't know her half as well as I did. The first thing she'd notice would be the darkness, not just the absence of light, the wrongness, the flat, stale air of a place that's been abandoned by something more important than breath. She'd fumble for the switch by the door, only to find the bulb blown. It wasn't. I had simply unscrewed it half a turn. It was a little touch, but effective. It meant she'd have to move deeper into the apartment, into the silence, into the truth. The second thing she'd notice would be the absence of noise. No TV, no music, no familiar sounds of me cooking in the kitchen or clattering around the back room, pretending not to wait up for her. Only that awful, cavernous emptiness, like a hollowed-out drum, waiting for someone to strike it. She'd call my name once, maybe twice. No answer. The only thing that would answer would be the tick of the clock, relentless, merciless. Then she'd see the table, the folder, the laptop screen glowing softly in the dark like a shrine to everything she had destroyed. She'd hesitate, because deep down, even if she hadn't admitted it to herself, she would know. She would know. She'd cross the room slowly, the heels of her designer shoes clicking too loudly on the hardwood floor, sounding absurd in the heavy silence. She'd open the folder first. Human nature. It always craves written proof, even when the heart is already screaming the truth. The photos would hit her first, grainy but unmistakable. Her smile in another man's lap, her lipstick smudged against another neck, her hands, everywhere they didn't belong. She'd flip to the next page. Screenshots of messages, vulgar, clumsy, cheap, all the things she was too smart to say to me, but apparently not too smart to text someone else. She'd keep flipping, frantic now. The timeline, the receipts, the betrayal, all lined up in black and white like tombstones. And then the laptop, a single file open. Slideshow, the greatest hits of Natalie's second life. Each photo appearing one by one. Each one a nail in the coffin. The laughter, the touching, the hotel rooms, the whispered promises caught on hidden mics, the video clips, the ones she thought she'd hidden so well in private servers. Except there's no such thing as privacy when you're a fool who trusts the wrong people. The final slide was just a sentence, centered on a blank screen. You buried us with your lies. I'm just giving you the funeral you deserve. I imagine her reaction. Shock first, denial next, then rage. Oh, the rage. She'd call my phone, over and over, and over. She'd scream at the empty apartment, at the cold walls, at the broken illusion she thought she could hold on to. She'd try to text, try to email. She'd maybe even drive to my old office, only to find my desk cleared, my badge deactivated, my number scrubbed from the system. She'd try our friends, only to realize they already knew, because I had made sure of that. One quiet lunch at a time, one carefully placed conversation, one truth bomb after another. The safety net she thought she had, the one made of smiles and small talk and mutual friends, it had disintegrated. She would be alone, exactly as she deserved. And the best part? There would be no closure, no final confrontation where she could cry or scream or beg for forgiveness. I had robbed her the one thing she needed most to feel like the victim, an audience, because that's what all her lies had always been about, hadn't they? Performances, roles played for applause. And now, the stage was empty. The curtain was down. The lights were off. Natalie, queen of smoke and mirrors, left standing alone in the ruins of the life. She burned to the ground. I wondered how long she'd sit there. Minutes? Hours? Long enough for the guilt to metastasize into panic. Long enough for her to realize that not only had she lost me, she had lost everything. The life she thought she could cheat her way through. The safety net she thought she could land in. The adoration she thought she could demand whenever it suited her. Gone. All of it. And me? I was already halfway across the state line by then. Windows down. Music loud. Future wide open. I didn't need to watch her fall. I didn't need to hear her sobs. Knowing she was drowning in the consequences of her own choices was enough. More than enough. Because some endings don't need fireworks. Some endings don't need grand speeches or final kisses or shattered plates. Some endings are just one door closing, one signature drying on paper, one ghost slipping quietly out into the night. And sometimes the most satisfying revenge is simply walking away while they burn. The first night away, I barely slept. Not because I regretted anything, not because I missed her, but because the silence was finally real. No pretending, no performance, no wondering if a late meeting was really a meeting, or if a girl's night was really a cover for something cheaper, uglier. It was just me, and the weight of freedom sitting heavy on my chest like a second heart that hadn't yet learned how to beat. I checked into a nameless roadside motel just past the state line. The kind of place where nobody asks questions, and the only ID they care about is cash in hand. The room smelled like stale cigarettes and bleach, but the bed was clean and the lock on the door was sturdy. It was enough. I stood by the window, watching the neon sign buzz and flicker in the darkness, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something like peace. Not happiness. Not yet, but peace. A kind of tired, broken stillness that only comes after the storm has finally ripped everything apart. I didn't rush to plan my next move. Didn't open job boards. Didn't check emails. Didn't scroll through social media, desperate for validation or revenge. I just existed, breathed, sat with myself. It's a strange thing, meeting yourself again after years of trying to be who someone else wanted. Turns out there was a lot of me left. Rough around the edges. Sure. Wounded, definitely. But not destroyed. I woke up the next morning with no alarms, no agenda. Just sunlight leaking through ugly motel curtains and a battered duffel bag at the foot of the bed that held everything I thought I needed to survive. Spoiler alert, it wasn't much. A few changes of clothes. My old leather wallet. The dog-eared copy of East of Eden she once mocked me for rereading every year. And a photo, not of her, of me and my dad back when I was a teenager. Before life got complicated. Before love started feeling like a loaded gun pressed against my ribs. We were standing by the old pickup truck he rebuilt from scratch, grease on our hands, sunburn peeling our noses, smiling like we owned the whole damn world. Looking at that photo, I realized something important. Somewhere along the way, I had let people convince me that love was supposed to hurt, that loyalty meant silence, that forgiveness was a one-way street with no exit. But it wasn't true. Real love, the kind my dad had shown me growing up, wasn't supposed to feel like drowning. It wasn't supposed to be built on lies, so fragile you had to hold your breath around them. It was supposed to build you, not break you. That morning, sitting cross-legged on a threadbare motel bedspread, I decided two things. First, I would never again settle for a love that asked me to betray myself. And second, this wasn't the end of my story. Not by a long shot. I wasn't some tragedy to be pitted. I was the author. And the next chapter? It was mine alone to write. I packed up the duffel bag, checked out a motel, and drove aimlessly for a while, letting the back roads lead me. No GPS. No destination. Just instinct and the open road. Around noon, I stopped at a greasy spoon diner with peeling red booze and a jukebox that still played vinyl. I ordered coffee and pancakes because it felt like a small act of rebellion against the life I left behind, where everything was about appearances and calorie counts. And is that really the healthiest choice? Screw that. The pancakes were fluffy and the coffee was terrible, and it was the best meal I'd had in months. As I sat there, flipping through a local paper left on the counter, an ad caught my eye. Help wanted. Manager. Small town auto repair shop. Experience preferred. No bullshit tolerated. I laughed out loud. Not because I was looking for work, but because for the first time in what felt like forever, the idea of staying somewhere new, starting over, not just surviving but building something didn't terrify me. It excited me. I folded the paper and tucked it into my bag. Maybe I'd call. Maybe I wouldn't. The point was, I had choices now. And for a man who had spent too long trapped in someone else's cage, that was everything. As I paid the check, the waitress, maybe mid-50s, hair in a messy bun, eyes sharp enough to cut glass, handed me back my change with a knowing smile. Running from something or running toward it? She asked. I hesitated, then smiled back, maybe a little of both. She winked. Just make sure you don't stop until you find something worth running toward. Outside, the sun was high and the asphalt shimmered like a mirage. I slid behind the wheel, rolled the windows down, and turned the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life, a rough, stubborn sound, full of defiance, kind of like me. In the rear-view mirror, the old version of my life disappeared into the dust. Ahead, a road I hadn't traveled yet, a future unclaimed, a chance to rebuild, not from the ruin she left behind, but from the pieces of myself I'd found in the ashes. And this time, no one was going to break me again. The call started 2 weeks after I disappeared. At first, I didn't recognize the number, didn't answer, didn't care. I had a new phone now, a new number only 3 people knew. The manager of the auto shop where I picked up a part-time gig, the landlord of the small cabin I rented outside town, and my sister, Emma. The rest of the world could burn. And for a while I thought it had, until Emma called late one evening, her voice tight and worried. She's looking for you, she said without preamble. I froze halfway through fixing the rusted kitchen sink, wrench clattering into the porcelain. Who? You know who. Emma's voice softened. Your ex. She's been blowing up my phone, texting everyone you ever knew. She posted on Facebook that you're missing, that she's worried you're unstable. I closed my eyes, feeling a familiar cold rage spread through my chest like frostbite. Unstable. Of course. That was the story she needed now. The grieving wife, abandoned by her poor, broken husband who just couldn't handle the pressures of life. A convenient narrative, a way to paint over her own sins. I'm fine, I said, wiping my hands on a rag. Tell her that if she really cared, she'd leave me the hell alone. Emma hesitated. She's not doing it for you. She's doing it for herself. Words getting out about what she did. I raised an eyebrow, even though she couldn't see me. Oh, you think small towns keep secrets? Emma huffed. Her videos. They're making rounds. Someone from work recognized her. Now it's all whispers and side eyes in HR meetings. I leaned against the kitchen counter, staring out the window at the endless stretch of pine trees and black sky. It was inevitable, I supposed. You can live a double life for a while. You can lie, cheat, and perform for the cameras. But eventually, the masks crack. And when they do, the world doesn't always clap for performance. What do you want me to do, Em? I asked quietly. You don't owe her a damn thing, she snapped. But if you wanted to pass a message along, I can. For a long time, I didn't answer, didn't move, didn't breathe. Then I said, tell her she got exactly what she wanted. Fame, attention, a life without me holding her back. Emma exhaled a shaky laugh. Savage. Just honest, I said. We hung up not long after, and I sat there for a while in the quiet of my half-finished kitchen, thinking about all the ways people show you who they are when the spotlight hits them. She could have told me the truth, could have said she needed more, needed something I couldn't give. Hell, maybe I would have even understood. But instead, she chose lies, deception, the cheap thrill of applause from strangers who didn't know her real name. And now, with her carefully constructed image crumbling, she was reaching back for me, the steady hand she once slapped away. I wouldn't be that man again. The fixer, the forgiver, the fool. She could drown in her own choices. I wasn't coming to save her. The next day, I drove into town, got a post office box, and filled out the forms to officially change my address. No forwarding. No forwarding ever. Then on a whim, I stopped at a tiny art supply store tucked between a coffee shop and a dusty used bookstore. The woman behind the counter had ink-stained fingers and a welcoming smile. "Looking for anything special?" she asked. "Yeah," I said after a moment. "A blank canvas." She grinned, as if she knew exactly what I meant. I bought 3. Back at the cabin, I set up a makeshift easel by the window, the winter sunlight thin and cold but honest. I stared at the empty canvas for a long time, unmarked, unclaimed, full of nothing but possibilities. It didn't matter that I hadn't picked up a brush in years. It didn't matter that my hand shook a little when I opened the first tube of paint. What mattered was that the past couldn't touch me anymore. Not her betrayal, not my failures, not the twisted version of love she tried to sell me like a cheap imitation. I dipped the brush into deep blue, dragged the first line across the canvas. The beginning of something new. The birth of a man she would never recognize. A man who didn't need applause, didn't need validation, didn't need anyone's permission to exist. I was done running from the wreckage, done looking back. From now on, I was building forward, stroke by stroke, choice by choice, breath by breath. 6 months later, and no ghost in the past was ever going to haunt me again. The sun beat down on the cracked desert highway, the old motorcycle rumbling beneath me like a living thing. No deadlines, no meetings, no pretending, just the open road and the man I'd finally become. I pulled off at a lonely gas station somewhere outside of Sedona, the kind of place where nobody asked questions and everybody had somewhere else to be. The cashier barely glanced up as I grabbed a water and a sandwich. Passing through, he asked. "Maybe," I said, handing him a crumpled 20. "Maybe, maybe not." The truth was, for the first time in years, I wasn't chasing anything. Not a promotion, not approval, not love. I was just here, alive, breathing air that tasted like dust and freedom. As I stepped outside, a flash of movement caught my eye. A woman struggling with the gas pump, cursing under her breath. She had dark hair pulled into a messy braid, a weather-beaten backpack slung over one shoulder, and a laugh, low and real, that burst out when she finally managed to get the stubborn nozzle working. Something about that laugh hooked into me, not in a desperate way, not in the way I use a mistake need for connection, just a simple acknowledgement. Here is another soul who knows how to survive the storms. She caught me looking and grinned, wiping her hands on her jeans. "Don't suppose you know how to fix a transmission?" she asked, jerking a thumb at the battered Jeep beside her. "Maybe," I said, feeling a smile tug at my mouth. "Depends. You offering cash or coffee?" She laughed again, easy and unself-conscious. "Coffee," she said. "And a story. A story. God, how long had it been since someone wanted to share something real instead of selling a version of themselves for likes and applause?" "Deal," I said. We spent the next 2 hours under the hood of her Jeep, grease on our hands, laughed in the air. The kind of simple, honest conversation that doesn't need translations or filters. She told me her name was Layla. Told me she was chasing sunsets, not careers. Told me she'd been burned before too, but still believed in second chances. Not the kind you ask someone else for, but the kind you give yourself when you finally stop expecting anyone else to save you. As night fell and the stars came out, we sat on the hood of her Jeep, drinking terrible gas station coffee and watching the desert sky light up like a canvas too wild for any gallery. At one point, she turned to me, her profile etched in silver starlight. "You look like a man who finally stopped carrying things that weren't as to hold," she said. I let that settle inside me for a moment. The woman I used to love, the life I used to cling to, the shame I used to wear like a second skin. Gone. Buried back there on some other road I would never travel again. I wasn't looking for a new beginning. I wasn't looking for anything at all. But sometimes, when you finally let go of everything you thought you needed, life hands you something unexpected, something true, Something worth building, not because you're desperate, but because you're ready. Layla handed me her coffee cup to refill and smiled. Stick around a while, she said. Might be fun. I thought about it. Thought about the roads ahead. The ones I hadn't walked yet. The ones that didn't come with maps or guarantees. Then I smiled back. Yeah, I said, might be. And just like that, under a desert sky thick with stars and second chances, I took my first real breath in years. Not the breath of a man running from ghosts. The breath of a man running toward something. Toward a life he chose, not one he settled for. Toward a story that wasn't written yet. And this time, it would be mine.